What's up, Change the Channel podcast listeners? My name is Megan Grace, and this is another episode of Change the Channel podcast. Welcome back to the show. On this episode, I first want to start out by saying that I am in a fight with GarageBand. GarageBand is where I record my podcasts, and GarageBand and I have been in a bit of a dance back and forth between literally feeling like GarageBand is interested in doing everything I don't want it to do and unwilling and uninterested in doing any of the things I would like it to do. I'm saying that and starting this out because the podcast that was originally posted and aired Receiving the New Flex is what it's called. For some reason, it only recorded the smallest portion of my podcast and uploaded it. And I was sitting here and thinking, I'm like, the channels started, right? The channels of like, man, it's technology. And one of the biggest channels that ran through my brain when I even first thought about starting a podcast was, I'm a person that technology doesn't show up for. It was this victim story that somehow everyone else in the world is just crushing it with technology. And, I like to say that on the conveyor belt of getting skills, I was rolled to my right and my left when they handed out things like skills around cooking or things to do with technology. And I was busily chatting with whoever else might have been on that conveyor belt. The image of it makes me chuckle and feels very resonant. And so I'm bringing it up in this moment because I have been thinking about, do I go in? Do I scramble to try to remove this other podcast? Do I come up with a way to hide what had happened? And I realized that in and of itself is a channel of perfectionism, right? The idea that I want my podcast to have legs to it. I want people to trust me and believe me, and something about it coming out seamlessly feels like the only way that it's valuable. And I've decided that I'm unsure what I'm going to do with that other version of the podcast that I had more or less wrestled with for about 3 days, trying to get the formatting correct, and finally just said, just fuck it. I'm just going to post it. And then I looked at it and realized later it didn't post what I thought it did. So I'm not sure what is going to happen with that version of the podcast that is somewhat blank. But regardless of whether I leave it in my feed or I take it out, I've decided that part of changing this channel of perceived perfectionism means things are more valuable. Part of that is removing the shame around, putting something out there and it being a flop. And instead of just sitting with it myself, I'm changing the channel and opening myself up to say that it happened. And it's interesting because even as I say this, I can feel a deep breath and a little bit of freedom to be messy. My head feels a little bit less spinny. I was mad, y'all. I was pissed when I looked and was like, oh my gosh, this thing, it didn't post according to what I wanted. And now just sharing it with all of you and being able to sit in the vulnerability and the frustration, and just allowing it to be a human experience of putting all of my best foots forward, all of the information that I knew at the time, putting something out, and it not turning out the way that I hoped it would. And talking myself through the fact that still gets to matter. My efforts still get to matter. My results of, maybe I can edit something a little bit more. Maybe this is an invitation to dive deeper into the technology of GarageBand and figure out how to make it work. Maybe the story that I've told myself that things have to be polished and perfect before I put it out also gets to be looked at. And all the while, the biggest thing that I commit to during this podcast is that you will get to hear the authenticity and like real life parts of who I am. And that means not always telling you about my struggle to victory. Sometimes I'm just going to tell you about the time when it just fell flat on my face, and that gets to be valuable too. So we can all put a little dash of humanness into our experience. And so that's my ranty intro. That's my little bit of real sauce on top of the topic of receiving that has really been up for me. And so I'm going to take a minute to pivot, but just wanted to acknowledge all of you out there that are stepping into a space because it matters to you, and you're not sure how it's going to turn out. Like, the people that post something and there's a typo, God forbid, or, you decided to open a business and realize, like, God, I don't know what to do with this paperwork. Or you said you would go out on a date with someone and you get there and you're like, I don't know why I said yes to this. What is going on? Or maybe you decided to love again after having your heart broken and it's not going the way that you thought it would. And it sure as hell is not matching the way that the movie said. Does that still matter? And I would just like to argue, or I guess be in the space with you and say that I think it matters too. And so just celebrating you, all of you brave, bold channel changers that are staying out of the space of mediocrity and the safe and the known and boldly going where you have never gone before. And that gets to matter too. So today, this is take 2 on this lesson around receiving that I've been that's been really up for me. As some of you know, I am a somatic coach and body worker. That means that I spend an inordinate amount of time fixating and focusing on what's happening in my body, what's happening in the people around me's body, is what is happening in the collective, what's happening both spiritually and emotionally and ancestrally with bodies. Like, I'm just mad fascinated by all of it. And there has been a new corner and shift that came about as a result of beautiful interaction with a couple friends of mine. So I'm going to set the scene for you because this family room is a place that everyone that has a pulse should want to be. This couple, Monica and Sam, that I just adore more than anything. They are like, they're just the essence of the couple that knows what's going on in the world. They're movers, they're change makers, they're lovers, they carry with them the frequency of abundance and overcoming and vitality and joy and hospitality. And Monica's a beautiful mover, and witnessing her when she's dancing, when she's creating, when she's lit up is like, I think it might be the 8th wonder of the world. And then Sam is, and I could list his credentials for days, but going through medical school and just having the most gracious being and heart about them. So Sam literally works with hearts. Monica evokes the best out of hearts through her art, and the two of them come together and form this colossal magic explosion of belonging that I don't know if I've really felt out of a couple outside of them. So I found myself blessed to be in their family room that was, designed beautifully. The colors are both calming and invigorating. It's the perfect blend of both of them. There's this beautiful paned window, and there was a a lovely spread of like finger food snacks and a homemade chai. And Monica, with her big gleaming face, was like, "Do you want to do tea and taro?" And with tea and taro, it's, we'll sit down in this particular time. She was like, "We're going to do a spread for your year." And we, flip over the card and have this whole conversation around like, this is what's up for this month, or this is what's up for this month. This is the flow. And I began to realize, I think around what would be June, because then Sam came home and sat down and was joining us too. And I realized that like all of a sudden my body was starting to have a reaction to the fact that, we had been spending quite a bit of time talking about me and talking about what was going to be coming up for me and what levels of like things to look forward to, and talking through the story. And I was finding myself, especially in like my sternum area, was actually getting really like there was this sensation, there was this pressure. It almost felt like my heart space was too full to be able to hold what was coming in. And I started to find myself almost resisting a little bit, like, how can I pour back? How can I give back to you? Almost like, how can I turn the spotlight back on the other person? And I started talking about this pressure that I was feeling near my sternum, and Sam was talking about how he had gone to this BIPOC yoga, and like the feeling of how it was open, like there was one pose that allowed for openness around this area, and that it evoked emotion. And I was like, oh my gosh, this container, this space, like right near your sternum, is actually, I believe, a portal for receiving. And so many of my clients end up having like pressure and pain in their shoulders and neck area. And as I was realizing it, it's kind of like that space where your sternum is, if that's pressing inward almost in this like protective armor, and if my spine behind, kind of where my shoulder blades bend, is sort of meeting it in the middle to create a smaller, safer space, then it was actually taking some stretching to make space for receiving. And oh my gosh, I just had this wild ass realization that I had actively shut my body down for receiving because I had believed the lie that I'm valuable when I give, that my role is best to focus on others. There's this like almost deflecting vulnerability by being present with other people, that I feel like actually gets almost these like energetic cookies from society, right? Like we're told, offer the best thing, or be the best, or move through the world being a giver, and then you matter. And I realized that in the cycle of giving, givers also need to receive as well for the cycle to continue, because otherwise I was cutting off the blessing that was sitting literally right there in front of me. And my friends were so beautiful because I was telling them, like, they could almost see me shifting around a little bit and like trying to kind of like move the conversation. And they were both like, you do realize that you're not taking up too much space, and we're enjoying being in this process with you. Like, this is how we've actively chosen to spend our afternoon. And in that moment, I realized that the pinching that was going on within my solar plexus, or not solar plexus, I'm sorry, within my sternum, was my body unlearning the feeling of constricting and resisting that love and receiving? And I realized, because when I sit back and think about it, there's nothing that makes me more sad than when I'm like really, really excited to connect with someone and I want to share something with them and they're closed off to me. They either have a story about how, well, time has passed, or life is too hard now, or, that's probably for someone else, or one day I'll get around to it. And I'm like, oh my God, like I have this love right here to offer. I'm asking to offer it to you. Why won't you just take it? And in that moment, my friends gently and kindly being like, we're going to stay with this flow of your story for all of the 12 cards. And me moving past the vulnerable point of realizing that someone was focusing that much attention willingly on me has actively created a body reaction within myself. My sternum and my chest area have been actually in pain for, I think, the better part of at least a week. I keep waking up with this, moving, or this need to stretch and also kind of massage the muscles, because I'm a person that, I'm changing my channel of abundance. I'm saying I'm worthy of big things. I'm up to big things in the world. Moving through the world like a leader. And when you're a leader, that means that you're outpouring a lot, whether it's mental, emotional, physical, psychological, spiritual energy. And for us to be able to keep that sustainable, we need to learn the skill of receiving. And that receiving is not selfish. Receiving is actually human. Receiving is not like taking. Receiving is inviting in. There's the opportunity for connection. And we, as human beings, I believe, are connection-making machines. And so sometimes it's, one person's time to receive and another person's time to give, and, vice versa. And so I just, at the end of this time with my friends, when I hugged them, I could feel our heart spaces connecting differently, because my heart space has literally changed shape and size. And it almost feels like going from like a small, like little Tupperware container, if you will, or a small vase, to like a bigger vase, which means that there's more space for flowers and contents. And I realize the connection. If I'm going to continue to manifest, if I'm going to continue to magnetize and to dream and to call in opportunities and financial security and love and, all the things that we talk about, what I'm realizing is sometimes we have not prepared the vessel to be a receptive space for that what we're asking to come in. And it really shook me, because I spend a lot of time focusing on this stuff. And I realized that if I'm missing this, if this is feeling totally, left from center, and if I'm buying into a cultural bullshit that says who deserves to receive, and even in the business world, like small business world, I find it so fascinating that we barely, we'll hardly blink twice to go buy, some celebrity's new product, or, if they say that they're loving XYZ, there's somehow like this familiarity where we're like, yeah, like I want to be like her. Cool. I'll go get this, or I'll add this to whatever. But when our own friends are starting a business or are trying something new or risking, there's this feeling of like, I just don't know. I don't know about you. I don't know about this offering. I'm not quite sure how to support. And so we're resistant to that. And I feel like there's a vibrational fracturing that happens when we as humans make our friends work so hard to be in a space of receiving. And so we get used to that to receiving being challenging, to receiving being hard. And what I would love to just offer as a way of changing the channel is, what if we became a gracious, generous, and humble receivers in the world, so that as we're looking around and people offer us something really special, we can say yes to it. And then when we say yes to it, we've done the work to be able to like open us up physically, like the caverns of our heart space, to be open for that gift. Because then it can get kind of messy when someone's like coming in with all this fire and all this power, and there can be that pinching feeling, that worry, when's the other shoe going to drop? And it keeps us from actually connecting with each other. Another thought on that, receiving has been really up for me. One of my other friends, dear, dear, dear friends, that I just cannot get over how much I respect her. I respect her work. I respect her wildness. I respect her wisdom. I respect the way that she is a woman in the world. Her name is Megan Taylor, and she is the bold entrepreneur, bold CEO. And she is someone that has come to me over and over again and just showered me with like love and words of belief about my worth and the things that I bring to the world. And what I'm realizing through this journey to open my heart space is that fear has kept me from fully absorbing like the love that she's like so kindly and so freely offered to me. And in a lot of those ways, I am literally the person getting in my own way. And it's because I've sat with those channels of receiving is dangerous, or receiving requires you to put out first, or you're not 100% sure what they're going to ask later, so don't say yes, or receiving is for weak people, or that's just not how this works. It's too decadent. It's too special. It's too intimate. It's too, all the shit that runs through our head that keeps me specifically from connecting deeply into the wisdom and the well and the love that my friend is offering me. And I just first off wanted to I think it's important to shout out our modern day teachers, the people that are in our lives that are teaching us about ourselves. And a lot of times my favorite teachers are my friends, and my favorite places to invest my monetary resources and my belief is in my friends. And it's a mind shift. And so the channel that through this podcast, through this, feeling that I'm hoping comes across is that we get to rewrite what receiving is. And we get to invite in the channel that receiving is an opportunity for connection. The strongest of people get to receive the most because they're outpouring the most. Each of us get to be supported and well-nourished leaders in the world. And I say leaders, if you have anyone around you at all, any human being, or maybe even no human beings, maybe just yourself. But mostly when you get to be around other people, I believe that if we put on the mantle of leadership and we all know that for the world to change, each of us gets to step into a version of leadership in our direct sphere and space. I'm kind of amazed and about what that could actually bring about. To if our mindset shifts to I am a leader, I'm looking for where that leadership can come through. Then instead of one or two or three or a handful of people being consistently called in and being, utilized for their resources over and over again because they're, quote, leaders. What if we all learned this beautiful dance and balance between receiving and giving? We saw ourselves all as leaders and realized that leaders get to both receive and give. And that is how our specific sphere of the world, my specific sphere, yours, our communities get to thrive and change, because we're getting that inside, outside, ebb and flow that comes from the givers and receivers game. So all that to say, this podcast has felt windy and wonderful, and all this stuff is just kind of in my being, coming out to you. So feel free to take which feels nourishing and helpful, and sit with the things that you are resistant to, because also, I would love to, as we're talking about resistance, I'm going to go back to this heart space. So if you take your two fingers and lightly run them along your sternum, which is going to be in between kind of your, in between and above your nipple space. So go ahead and just rub your fingers across that area. Number one, notice, when was the last time that you personally touched that area on purpose? Do you notice that your body feels welcoming to it? Do you notice that your body feels resistant to it? Do you notice that your body's numb to it? Maybe your body just doesn't give a shit in that area. All of that is medicine. All of that is wisdom. And what I've started to do in this game of, number one, taking on a mantleship of being a leader, calling myself a leader, believing that I am, and moving through the world as if I am. And also this newfound radical desire to move through the world able and willing to be a receptacle of receiving. I am doing some work around this heart space. So take your hand, the palm of your hand now, and lightly, with maybe about the amount of pressure that you would put as you're rubbing your hand across maybe a blanket to sort of smooth it out. Put your hand, rest it on your bare skin of your sternum area, and just feel the difference in temperature. Maybe your skin in your heart area is actually warmer because it's been under clothes. Maybe your hands are colder, like mine, because they've been out. Just notice the difference. And then I would love to invite you, if you're not driving, if you're in a stationary space, to put your other hand on top and feel how the pressure shifts. And close your eyes and imagine that other hand is actually my hand. Because when we're receiving, we get to do it together. And just take a big deep breath in. Hold at the top. Does your hand stay on that area, or does it kind of balloon out and away? Try to keep the pressure on there, and then out, breathe out. On the next breath, when we breathe it in, we're going to breathe in the affirmation that I am worthy to receive. And then on the exhale, we're going to do something called spine breathing. Spine breathing is where, instead of thinking about exhaling out your mouth, I would love for you to mentally imagine exhaling out of your spine. So breathing in, I even like to think about, we're going to exhale out the back part of the spine directly behind where my hand is. So I take a big deep breath in with the affirmation, I am worthy to receive. Exhale out through my spine. Breathe in. Exhale out through the spine. You can continue to do these breaths as I'm talking. But I'd love for you to notice that there's another hand on top of the hand that's on your body, and that creates a different level of weightedness. This is what it feels like to have support, to not be alone. When we breathe out through the spine, it's actually an invitation to wake up the nervous system. Our spine is kind of the house that a lot of these amazing little connectors that go out to all parts of your body come through the spine. But this visualization is to intentionally kind of leave the brain out of the mess for a minute, because our brain is the first thing that likes to take us out, especially when we're talking about things around worthiness or trying something new in the body. So with this pattern, with this breathing in, holding at the top, feeling both hands, both levels of support, and breathing out through your back, just notice what shows up. Are there areas of spaciousness that you didn't feel before? Have you not even thought about that area behind, like in your back, in your spine? When was the last time that you thought about exhaling through some other part other than your nose or mouth? All of these things are ways that we can tap in to the nervous system, and the nervous system is the boss of our body. We want the boss of our body to be supple and ready to receive. So as we take one more deep breath in, breathing in the affirmation, I am worthy to receive, holding at the top, exhaling out the spine. The shoulders naturally roll back. When you're ready, go ahead and open your eyes. Orient yourself back to the space that you're in. Thank these hands for being a part of this journey. Sometimes I like to almost move the skin around, like put enough pressure on my skin so that all of it kind of moves around underneath my hands. Just getting a little bit more circulation, a little more movement in that area. And go ahead and brush your hands off, kind of shaking out whatever energy has maybe come out, and offering it, literally putting your hands up to the sky to allow it to be lifted and taken away. Can be a beautiful practice as we're like intellectualizing the idea of receiving, but then grounding it deeply in the body so that you're able to do something with it. How does that sound? Yeah, I'm feeling a little bit more grounded. I can feel my heart space. I can feel my gratitude. I can feel a level of connection to you as the listener for also doing this work. And yeah, so just to recap, the channels that we're changing today is one about that we're all worthy to receive, that givers get to receive as well, that you are worthy to receive, and also calling you forward as a leader. You are a leader in the space that you're in. The world is better because you were here on purpose, and that instead like no one wins when we play small. No one challenges you when you play small, because playing small, it doesn't challenge anything. It's not shaking up stuff. It's allowing things to be the same way that they've always been. And if we're going to be going through the world changing channels, it's because we desire something to look different, feel different, be different in our world. So Change the Channel podcast fam, thank you so much for being with me on this episode, for winding through my paths and thoughts and affirmations. And please send a little extra love and joy to my friends that I mentioned. They are powerful, and be mindful and maybe look out in your own space. Who are your Sam, Monica, and Megans that are in your space? And tell them, like, I'm working on receiving, and I'm so grateful for the ways that you show up for me and with me. Who knows what might come from that conversation too, huh? All right. Change the Channel podcast listeners, thank you again so much for being here with me, for being in the mess of learning and cultivating and being committed to changing the channels in your own life, in your own sphere. Love you so much. And this is another episode of Change the Channel podcast.